Hello. I am super excited to look out over this awesome group. This is definitely a community that I'm very proud to be a part of. So I'm really happy that I'm here today and get to moderate this panel on the Alliance for OpenUSD. You know, this is an organization that was just announced this past week. It's also referred to as AOUSD, in case you hear that. You know, the AOUSD was really founded in order to support the use of OpenUSD across many different industries in a way that will allow our communities to grow and be inspired by a piece of technology that allows us to share across 3D applications. I'd like to, right now, introduce our panelists. So we have representatives from all of the founding members of the AOUSD. That includes Pixar, Autodesk, Adobe, and NVIDIA. So let's go ahead and welcome them to the stage, and then I will make sure we know who they all are. There are 5 chairs here. Excellent. So just to my left, this is Steve May, Chief Technologist, or Chief CTO. I'm going to just say it that way. CTO at Pixar. The next folks on this panel, we have Guido Quaroni, Senior Director of Engineering of 3D and Immersive at Adobe. Next in line is Guy Martin, Director of Open Source and Standards at NVIDIA. And finally, we have Eric Bourque, VP of Content Creation at Autodesk. So we have a lot of material to try to get through in this panel, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. So to start, Steve, you know, you've been involved with OpenUSD for quite a while, you know, watching it grow at Pixar and becoming something that's used across our industry. Can you explain why now was the right time to form the Alliance and what it will do for our industry?
Hi everybody. Thanks for being here. So USD has been around at Pixar since officially since 2013. After Brave, we had a need internally to kind of solve a problem that we were wrestling with scene description. Brave we could just barely make. It was a fairly complex film for us, and we had different technologies we used to make that film, but we had to we realized that we didn't have the real answer. The real answer was to bring these things together and make USD. And we realized that it wasn't just us that was kind of wrestling with this problem of scene description and interchange of data between the different applications we use. So it was like all the studios that we knew were wrestling with this. So we, and when I say we, I mean literally we, because Guido here was, of course, at Pixar. Then there's a lot of people here in the audience that have worked on USD over the years. We decided to open source it because we wanted to become a standard. And we wanted to have an ecosystem that we wanted to share it with everyone. We also had a selfish desires too. We wanted our artists to have the best tools available. We wanted to be able to quickly adapt to new tools and integrate them into the pipeline. And so we wanted it to be a standard. And it was quite successful within the film industry. I think we were surprised. I mean, we knew it was good. We knew it was a good technology. We were very happy with how fast it kind of got traction in the film industry. And I think moving now to today, it's one thing. You know, I think we were fairly optimistic that it would get traction in the film industry. What we didn't really anticipate is that other industries would become interested in as well. And it just, you know, I would say in the last probably 2 years, 1.5, you know, I would say the last 2 years, it just kind of slowly became obvious that it was time for USD to take a next step. You know, it's as far as becoming a standard, you know, we have the OpenUSD source code, which is kind of the de facto standard and the definition of what's checked into that library. But as more and more people rely on USD and companies make big investments, new technologies that rely on USD, like it kind of needs to become a standard that's just not just defined by what we checked in to the code base. And so that's really, like, I just look at it as we're on this path with USD. This is the next step. Is really trying to make it a formal standard.
That makes a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, so many of us depend on USD for so many different things. So as it continues growing, making sure there's a standard sounds awesome. Now, at this point, Guido, you've also been very involved with OpenUSD since the very beginning, first at Pixar and now at Adobe. And Autodesk has also been, Eric, since the very beginning, one of the early adopters of USD and really pushing it and continuing to expand its use across the many different applications that Autodesk is responsible for. So how do the two of you see things continuing to expand and grow at Adobe and at Autodesk in terms of OpenUSD?
Yeah, but Adobe, I mean, it was interesting, the transition to move from production into a company that makes so many creative tools. What? Oh, hello? Hello? Should I
Use this?
Should I go with this? Go with this. So definitely, one of the interesting realization at that joining Adobe was the idea. Adobe sells like a creative suite with a lot of application, but ultimately, it's clear that artists were not going to just use one set of application from one company. And so the first discussion that I really wanted to have was, let's see if we have something that we can interop as much as possible with our tools and do a very good job about that, and also interop with third-party software, because we know the artists out there is similar to the artists at Pixar. They want to use the best tools, and you can't pretend that, oh, we're going to offer the whole solution. And so, but the first question that was asked was like, okay, how this USD thing is open source, is good, but how this is going to be standardized and sustainable over time? Like some of the parallel was PDF. Like a PDF really took off over the years, but also was really something that was standardized, and it was guaranteed that if you have a PDF document, years from now it's going to be understood, et cetera. So that was really the interest to start thinking, okay, is there something that we can go beyond the open source implementation, the kernel specification, to push it to a place that also for big companies like Adobe and Autodesk and others have also the confidence to invest in USD as to be the de facto interchange format, especially at the authoring stage, not necessarily on the delivery stage, with something that can be sustainable over time. And so that's kind of quite exciting. Actually, one of my hope one day in some future that application really use USD as their document format to be able to, even if you don't use that software anymore because you change everything, you change computer, whatever, maybe there's still a way that you can, not maybe all the data, but some data, you can still understand and read it because it's being now standardized and maintained over time. So this was definitely something that was needed for some of the more like, not so sure people. Was like, okay, if he's going into this and he's becoming ultimately into a standard, definitely we are a lot more confidence.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would say, well, Guido gets the new mic. For Autodesk, it's a very similar story, actually. It is a lot about interop between our products and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's also that our customers are using a multitude of tools, right? And so they're not going to use everything from Autodesk. They're going to be using side effects tools or Foundry tools or Adobe tools or whatever it might be. And so that's why it's super important for us that we kind of adhere to this standard. We are trying to contribute back to it, and we've been putting it in all of our products. And so it is interop between our products, but it's also interop within the ecosystem. And as we are at Autodesk building a new platform called Flow, we need to have even more of this interoperability between things. And so I think this comes back to the comment that Steve was making at the beginning. Like, we don't want people to have to go look at the code of USD to understand how something works or accidentally change the way it works and then make all these other things brittle. And so for us, it's super important that this is kind of very well, rigorously standardized so that we can really trust this as we move forward and continue to invest in it.
That also makes a lot of sense. I know many of us in this room use both of these products as well as others, and the adoption of these open standards really helps a lot in the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. Now, while development and use of OpenUSD has obviously started to proliferate throughout the media and entertainment industry, there's also a lot of use outside of the industry and a lot of interest in use outside of the industry. So, Guy, NVIDIA has been working on enabling workflows for industrial, for manufacturing, for large-scale simulation. So I'm really interested in your take on all of this and the other side of kind of the other industries that are using this stuff. So can you talk a little bit about some of the work that you've already done at NVIDIA to start to pull in OpenUSD, as well as where you see things going outside of the media and entertainment industry?
Right, so we have a product you may have heard of called Omniverse. And at its core is OpenUSD, right? It's really been the thing that we saw early on was going to be a game changer, and it was going to be something that enabled not just the great work that happens in visual effects, but also the work that happens in a lot of other industries. And ABC, manufacturing, industrial, and one of the interesting things that we saw is that OpenUSD has not only all the great capabilities that we talk about, right? I'm ringing, sorry. The ability to have non-destructive editing and everything that we composition and all those things, but the ability to actually be extensible, right? So for a lot of our use cases where you need to add functionality, you need to add capabilities, USD allows that, right? The architecture work that you guys did at Pixar was really, apparently, there we go. Whoa. Very loud now. Was really important. The architecture of USD really allows it to be expanded and used in these other industries. So I think that's the really important key piece. We're obviously super excited about the alliance and why we're part of starting it, because we think that it's going to be something that raises the tide, raises the all boats in the tide that moves forward with not just the visual effects space, but in the AEC, industrial, and the manufacturing space.
That's awesome. Now, let me ask a question that I'm sure many in this audience actually have in their minds at the moment. Obviously, we're very excited about all the work that's happening outside of media and entertainment. But are you worried in any way that this might possibly dilute the focus that we've had in OpenUSD on the media and entertainment industry? What are your thoughts, just as a panel, about how this hopefully helps everyone versus hurts?
Maybe I should take this one first. First of all, no one cares more about making sure that it still serves our industry, the film industry, than Pixar. Obviously, we've put an enormous amount of investment and years of work into it, and so we're very, very committed to making sure that it does that. It serves film and visual effects and animation. But it's a valid question. I think it's one of the challenges. I'm looking at the SIGGRAPH community here has always been good at providing feedback, so you all can keep us honest and make sure that we do fulfill on maintaining that. But look, we answer this question. This comes up repeatedly with things. It came up when we open sourced it in the first place. Like, if you open source USD, Pixar folks are going to ask the question, well, is that going to hurt the way Pixar uses it? We sell our RenderMan software, and artists at Pixar will be like, well, you're doing this fix for ILM, yep. That's not something we need. And so you have to, so there's always that kind of tension between looking out for yourself when you share something. And I think, I'm an optimist. I always take the view of we see benefits in sharing. And just talking about SIGGRAPH, I feel like we've done this historically as a company. We've always published papers and done a lot of presentations and talks, because we think that actually by sharing, we will get back even more benefit than by just focusing on ourselves. So it's a completely valid question, and it's a challenge we need to make sure that we work on. But I feel like we've done it before, and I think that the benefits that we'll get from industries and companies outside of our industry will be beneficial. Maybe not all of them, but I think there will be benefits, because there are sometimes things that we don't see internally or within our industry that other companies may see and prioritize. I know it was that way. I'm again picking on you. With ILM, sometimes ILM would ask for things in RenderMan that we just weren't thinking about or didn't need yet, but we did them, made RenderMan better, and then a year or two later we realized that, oh shoot, we need that exact same thing for a Pixar film. Thank goodness that ILM actually asked for it. We already have it in there, and now it's been tested and used. So.
If I can add, obviously for Adobe, this is not big of a concern, because the majority of the software is really toward the media and entertainment, creative tools. But the one thing, it sounds like a stretch, but I've been in contact with companies that make cars they make clothing, they make shoes, they're making movies. They're motion capturing people, that when they make a car, if you look at a car, it has hundreds of thousands of objects. It looks like a set of, maybe not Avatar, but like a big one. And so it's interesting, when we talk to this company, actually their process, their creative process to produce product, actually they're making, in a way, it's funny because we do a lot of similar, but you have a department that does the design, and then does review, and then goes down the line. And so they're seeing some of this value, so I'm hoping that is not necessarily moving away from the principle and the fundamental of USD, the fact that it's used in other contexts, because in fact, again, I joke about it with so many of these companies that kind of, making a movie with 100 people making 20,000 versions of the shoe. It's kind of when we make a movie. And so what the problem they have, not that different actually than the one that production is trying to overcome using layering, variants, classes, references, and all that stuff. So again, it may sound like a stretch, but it isn't.
I think one of the other things that's super important is, obviously all those things are great, but also we're kind of modeling after the SWF governance model, right? So there is a TAC, and so there won't be these things where like random stuff comes in. Things will be discussed, they'll be evaluated, there'll be a USD architect involved that's kind of helping steer technical decisions, and I think that's one of the things that's really going to ensure that we don't have this problem of dilution and that we don't focus too much on one industry or another. So I think it's super important that we have that.
Yeah, and you stole part of my answer there, but
Oh,
that's
sorry,
okay. That's
sorry.
okay. But I think also to tack on to what Eric said.
To tack onto?
To tack onto, see how I did that? To tack onto what Eric said about the governance, one of the things that we're thinking about from a governance perspective is, as new companies join, making sure we have that diversity and making sure that it's not only just, it's not AECO taking over, right? But there's a focus on making sure that there are representation of different companies from all the different industries, and that it becomes something that is not just one industry, but it's something, again, I'm going to say it again, lifts all boats.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's actually a really great transition maybe into talking a little bit more about the process and how the Alliance is actually going to work. Can you talk a little bit about what some of your first goals and priorities are for this first year? What are you hoping you're going to be able to do?
Yeah, I think we all agree that number one goal is the core specification working group. If you saw the announcement, there's only one working group right now. It's core specification working group, and that's actually on purpose because we believe it's super important to have the base and the foundation and to take all the great work that was done at Pixar and say, there's a lot of stuff there, but to say, what are we defining as the core, right? What are the things we're all going to rely on? And then from there, figure out what these other working groups are that need to be started. There was a lot of discussion as we started this about, hey, should we spin up a bunch of different working groups when we start? And we actually were very intentional about saying, we're going to be a little conservative with that, right? We're going to make the decisions about what needs to be in core and then see from there what needs to be additional working groups that come in. The good news is in the governance model, it's flexible. It's one of the reasons we chose, actually, Linux Foundation was to have a governance model that allowed us the flexibility to make the changes as we went along, but that also had the rigor that was necessary if we're going to take this thing to ISO, to become an international standard.
One thing I'm also hoping is how do we, with this organization, we find ways to work with other standards bodies like Kronos and GLTF and the PBR standard, because this is a very important aspect. How do we try to, yes, yet is another standard, but at the same time work together to really align on things that are not necessarily that different, to really help everybody out there, because today USD is really strong in the authoring, in the creation phase. It also has a strong delivery one, but there's another big, strong delivery system that is GLTF, and I'm hoping that we will spend some time also to coordinate and work together to make sure that we don't just go this way. For reasons sometimes that may not be really be important to the artist ultimately, because it may be just cosmetics, sometimes I call those. So I'm hoping that will be also an opportunity.
Awesome. Speaking of collaboration with other organizations, obviously we're all here with the ASWF, and I know all of your member companies are a part of the ASWF. This is a very important organization, and obviously separate from the AOUSD. So the question that I have is, how are we going to make sure that we maintain that deep collaboration when it has to do with OpenUSD, and especially with our ASWF working group, USD working group, and all the great things that they've already done there.
Right, and I think, so something Guido touched on, it's important to note, we actually are, and we can say officially, we checked this with our legal group, we can say officially that we're pursuing liaison relationships right now with Kronos and with ASWF. The ASWF one, we're going to be working to see how we make sure that anything that comes out of the USD working group, which is doing fantastic work, can flow back into the standard, have the appropriate IP protection so that we make sure that that all works smoothly. Stay tuned. Lots more work to go on that, but I can say that we've made the progress with the legal committee to actually go and make that happen. And I think it's going to be really, really important because as we think about later groups that are not just media and entertainment, the notion of having an industry group or a group that will sit together and figure out what requirements need to happen in USD, we don't need to do that for media and entertainment. We already have it. We already have it with the great work that's going on within the ASWF's USD working group.
Awesome. That sounds really great. I know that we all are, again, very passionate about USD and excited about continuing all the things that we're already doing within the ASWF, and very much looking forward to that collaboration.
And if I can add, they're mostly the same people. It's not like, oh, I never seen you. It's like, and so it's up to us to be also smart about coordinating, organizing the right thing. Again, the working group are fantastic within different branches that David outlined this morning. They're going to be working group in terms of the schema and for the standardization. So we just need to also just find a way to coordinate also because we want to make sure that there is a wide access of information out there for members and non-members on all about USD. So again.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's all the same people.
Yeah, I'll add too, like one of the things I really like about this is we kind of have these three different things that are all kind of mutually beneficial, I think, to the USD effort. You know, you've got OpenUSD, which is the home of the open source project. You have the Academy Software Foundation working groups around USD that really help people like learn, deploy, and effectively use USD. And now we've got the Alliance for OpenUSD that's going to work on kind of formalizing a specification for it. And I think all of them kind of have, they all kind of fit together in a really nice way.
Yeah, I guess we're probably best well known to say that triangles are strong, right, within computer graphics. So it makes sense that those three things working together would be a really great thing.
It's in the logo. It's in the logo.
Put it in the logo, Rachel.
It is. It is.
That was intentional, by the way.
I had no idea. Awesome. Maybe we can also talk a little bit about some of the organizations that you have formed under. So, you know, in collaboration with the Linux Foundation as well as the Joint Development Foundation, which is also part of the Linux Foundation, the JDF. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I feel like many people in this room don't know much about the JDF.
Yeah, so just quick show of hands. How many here have heard of Joint Development Foundation before? We just mentioned it. Okay. Only a couple. So to give you some perspective, because we got this question about, hey, why not just do this in ASWF? And great question. One of the things that the Joint Development Foundation, which is a part of the Linux Foundation, does is they're chartered to actually create standards. So what does that mean? Yes, they're legally chartered to do it, but they also have a relationship with ISO. So it's a big thing that we want to make sure that we're able to take whatever we come up with, standards that we come up with in AOUSD, and make them international standards. So that was one of the reasons that we went to do that under the JDF and under the Linux Foundation. It obviously also doesn't hurt that the Linux Foundation is the umbrella organization that also houses ASWF. So we really think there's an opportunity to have a great collaboration because you're all kind of under the same legal entity in terms of how things work.
Awesome. Yeah. Plus that, you know, that focus in all of those organizations on open communication and development. I think it again makes sense for everyone to be working really nicely together. Yeah. So what do you feel like the future really brings us with OpenUSD? If all the things that you're hoping happen over the next year or even beyond, where does that get us? What things are you excited about that come out of that?
So I would say at Autodesk, and probably for all of us, you know, we have a lot invested already in USD, and so we're kind of treating it like a standard, but it's not a standard. And so that's a little bit scary. And so in some ways, this de-risks that investment that we put into that, and kind of ensures that we, you know, things will continue to behave the way that we want them to behave. I think the other thing that it really helps us with is when you think about other implementations and other platforms, whether it's in web, whether it's mobile, whether it's, you know, something else in the future. It gives us a really kind of rigorous way to make sure that the data is going to be kind of interoperable in the way that we would expect, and, you know, we can continue using this moving forward.
Awesome.
I was going to make a joke, but copy and paste. it would be awesome if one day we can do copy and paste between applications, and because we have something with 3D, like we do images. So I'm really looking forward to, again, see if there are ways that USD as a standard can help really simplify the life of all the artists out there, even in some of the things that may take it for granted that is not the cool, fancy demo that you can go with that, but go all the way to simplifying things. And so the idea would be, I believe there are two fronts. One is innovating and adding new capabilities. It can be behaviors, can be nerf, STFs, and all sorts of other cool stuff that is happening out there. But at the same time, really see if we can get to a point where, again, we go back to like, if I have a sphere, I want to do a copy and paste, can I do it versus no, you can't, the way you do with images. So again, that would be a great place to be one day.
Awesome. So I want to make sure that all of you get the opportunity to say anything else that you're hoping you want to get across to the ASWF community. So before we kind of wrap everything up, do you think you can, anyone who wants to speak about those last things that they want to make sure everyone knows?
Steve.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We're all staring at you.
We're all staring at you, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I think USD is I think it's great, and a lot of us are using it in really interesting ways. For me, it's really about like just, I mean, I'm looking at the logo down here, like the alliance part is just keeping everyone going down the same path with USD as the solution. There's, I think, a real risk of fragmentation or forks or different standards emerging that try to do the same things that USD does. And so for me, my hope is that, it's kind of, the copy and paste, it's just like, if we can all just be aligned and keep everyone moving together, then we can do this. And that's why I think it's important that we are bringing in this conversation with companies outside of our industry, because they are also trying to solve these same kinds of issues with 3D content. And other industries could decide that they want to do something different. And then at some point, maybe USD is not a thing anymore. And I don't want to see that happen. So it's pretty simplistic, but that's my view. And then again, I really am excited and look forward to seeing how it gets used in ways that we did not foresee, either at Pixar or within our industry. We've already kind of seen that. I missed DigiPro this year because I was at a wedding. But it was fascinating last year at DigiPro to see the way that other companies and studios were using USD, and sometimes much more cleverly than we use it at Pixar, frankly. And it's so, I know, it's rewarding, and also I think a validation of a good technology is when it gets used in ways that the people who made it didn't think it would get used. And so that's the thing I'm just excited to see as we go forward.
That was a great throwback to the keynote earlier today, talking about how awesome it is to see your own open source code getting used in other places. So yeah, agreed.
And in unexpected ways.
Exactly.
Yeah. I would just add, I think really, hopefully we all look back on this and look at it as a watershed moment, right? Where we've done not exactly the equivalent of HTML, but we've done something very similar and enabled a 3D ecosystem that has a bunch of different industries involved, right? Obviously, we're excited about it from industrial AECO and others, though we do a lot of stuff with media and entertainment as well. And I'm really excited about kind of, we got everybody aligned, right? And this should not be undersold. Getting everybody aligned in this first group, I think, is really important. Seeing the interest that we're seeing for potential additional general members of this organization, I think, is important because it signals that it is that watershed moment, and it's a great technology to build on.
Couldn't say that any better.
The only thing I would add is this is like an awesome milestone, right? I can't imagine when you were first doing this in 2013, I think you said, that you thought we would get here. And I think it's great. Like, we're all super thankful to Pixar and all the work that you've done and for bringing this here. So I think that's awesome, and you should be really proud.
Anything to add, Guido?
No.
No, he's like, I'm done talking. Awesome. Yeah, so I think that we're at the end of the panel. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to all of our panelists because they've been amazing coming up here talking about this new organization. It's something that I personally am very excited about and excited to work with them within the ASWF. So on behalf of everyone at the AWS, thank you for listening and thinking about USD and pushing things forward. And then finally, for anyone in the audience who wants to know more about OpenUSD, whether it's something that you're using every day or even something that maybe you've never thought of, and this might be the first time you're really considering it in this room, I'm sure that everyone on this stage would be more than happy to talk to you during breaks or anytime next week as everyone is running around. So don't hesitate to stop them. They're going to tell me afterwards. I shouldn't have said that, but
We're here all week.
exactly. They're actually a really great group of people. So if you don't know them, feel free to stop them.
No laughing.
Why is
So much
David
laughing.
laughing? Why is David laughing?
Awesome. And then also the AOUSD will be doing a number of talks throughout the conference and in the future, so please check out the things that are on the screen now. In addition, the ASWF the USD Working Group is going to be having a virtual town hall. It is virtual, as the name implies. So you can watch that live on August 16th, so please feel free to dial in then. And then on top of that, we also very much encourage anyone who has an interest in USD in joining the working group itself. The meetings are always open, and it is a very lively and exciting group to be a part of. So thank you very much, and thank you to the panelists.
Thank you, Rachel.